Awesome. Thank you for that very long introduction, Craig. Yes, so I love CSS. I originally thought a few weeks ago that I was going to be talking about CSS tonight and all the amazing things it can do that that JavaScript used to have to do. But Craig was like, oh no, you should do design tokens. And so he said, yeah, just do a 5-minute lightning talk on design tokens. And then on Friday, that turned into a 20-minute talk on design tokens. So I've padded things out a little bit, but it's all good. So first up, I'll just, some caveats. This isn't a particularly technical talk. I'm not clever enough to be technical. When it comes to design tokens, I've been dealing with them for about 6 months. So I'm not an expert, but I will share with you my journey with design tokens. And there is no live coding in this whatsoever because that terrifies me. So you can't really talk about design tokens without talking about design systems. Design systems, I've worked on quite a few in my time. They've sort of become design systems. They used to be component libraries and style guides and things, and they've all sort of come together and merged. And each one that I've worked on, whether it's been the original Atlassian AUI or ones at Prosper or SiteMinder or wherever, they all pose their own challenges as far as the technology that you use and the way that you build them. And politics plays a large role in it as well. So you don't necessarily get the opportunity to use the things that you want to use. So about 6 months ago, I started a new role at Sendle, and I came in with the brief, basically, great, make us a design system, go ahead, do that, easy, no worries. And I thought to myself, that's easy, yeah, I've worked on design systems, I know what they're supposed to have, so yeah, this is all cool, I'm totally okay. And so I sat down and I mapped out what I thought should be in a design system, and I came up with this is what a design system should have. But this was based on my experience with the last sort of 10 years, 15 years working on these things, and I hadn't really poked my head up and done a lot of research around what's new in design systems as far as the technology goes around them. So I did my due diligence and a lot of research and stuff, and looking at the popular design systems that are out there, the Lightning Salesforce design system, or Polaris from Shopify, or Westpac Gel, or Atlassian, of course. A sort of, and the people that I follow on Twitter that talk about design systems, so Gina and Nathan Curtis, people like that, they all started talking about design tokens, and they were mentioning design tokens, and that sort of piqued my interest, and I was like, what is design tokens? So I started burying myself into research around those things, and this was really good because the concepts around it work well for me, because at the moment I'm a team of 1.5, so I'm building all of this, and I've got one developer to sort of help me sort of reactify things and Rubify things and work their magic. And so where we are at Sendle, because we have multiple stacks that we need to work with, we are working, it's a Ruby based, but we have React components and various other things. It meant that we couldn't just shift over to an off-the-shelf design system. So looking at the other systems, it was good because it validated, what I was after. And as I say, these are the things that I was interested in, and the people that I was following. So notice them because they're worth following if you want to. So what are design tokens? They're various things, but I'm going to ask a few questions. What are they? Where did they come from originally? How can I use them? How can you use them? But most importantly, why are they a good thing? And why are they something that you should maybe consider introducing into your products? When it comes to what are they, of course, it depends, as everything does. You'll often get, you'll see products like Figma or Sketch or some of the sort of design tools out there. Thank you, Steve. They might refer to SAS variables or CSS custom properties as design tokens, and that's not incorrect. It's not inaccurate, but we can go further. So design tokens, in essence, are the smallest design decisions that you can make for a product codified. And so, yes, they could be CSS variables or SAS variables, but you can make them far more flexible by pulling back another level and using JSON or YAML to basically map out things like your typography, your colors, widths, anything really that you would make a design decision around. And I'll go into it a little bit more later on. So to answer the question of where they came from, so Gina, who worked at the time at Salesforce, had a problem in as much as she was designing interfaces for the web, but she was also designing interfaces for Android. And she found that it became quite painful for her role designing designing an interface and then giving it to a developer and then having to design another interface and give it to a developer for Android, because she had to double up on all her work, particularly when it came to things like specifying colors, because on the web you've got a 6-digit hex value, and then on Android they have an 8-digit hex value, which makes a lot of sense. But there were these sort of technical limitations around the speed of her being able to produce stuff. And so she came up with, along with a development team there, they came up with this concept of design tokens. So how do you use them? So Salesforce built a tool called Theo, and there's also another tool out there called Style Dictionary, which was built by a developer, Danny Banks, who works at Amazon. And what these tools do is essentially take your design token, and they're platform agnostic, and they're tech stack agnostic. Again, I'll mention that in a moment. But they basically remove the problem where you have a product like Figma or Sketch or something, and the designer makes a design decision, changes a color value in that, and then exports that out. So that's fine, that works, but I kind of want to turn it around. I don't want to rely on a particular tool to make those decisions, because in our modern world, all the design team might decide that they don't want to use Sketch anymore, they want to use Figma. And so suddenly all those values and everything that you had your nicely set up pipeline kind of redundant. So by using a build tool like Theo or Style Dictionary, you have all your decisions made in your JSON file, and then you can build out to everything. Again, I'll talk about that in a moment. So why are they good? They're your one source of truth. They're stored in a repo, they're contained. If somebody changes something, there's a record of it, it's traceable, you can blame somebody, you can roll back. It's tech stack agnostic. This is the thing that I really, really like about it. It doesn't rely on React or Vue or Angular or anything. It's completely agnostic. So you can build for all sorts of platforms and different things. Anything that can consume an API, you can build for. So if we go back to my roadmap, here we are. There's your design tokens. You may not be able to see them. There they are. Animation for the win. So I'll just go back to this one. So I'm using design tokens to basically build everything on the left-hand side here. So it filters through to brands and stuff like that. So again, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but for now, here is a design token. So these are the design tokens that I'm using for our colors, some of them. It's basically a JSON file of key value pairs, and that's pretty much all it is. But if you take note of the structure, so we've got color, base, midnight, default, and then our value. So when we compile this into JavaScript tokens, for instance, we've got the color base midnight default, and then the color. So that's exported as constants, goes down through, same thing for SAS tokens. So color base midnight default, and you can also see that during the build process we can prefix with our own name. So this makes it really useful for things like theming and stuff, because you can basically spit out a completely different set of things with a different prefix if you feel like it. And then, as with SAS tokens, you just pull them in and then just declare in your variables file where you want things to go. Again, if you have sort of name agnostic variable names, then that means that when you do come to theming and things, it's much easier to swap things out and not break any of the code in your HTML. But, as I said before, it's also really useful for building things like native apps for iOS or Android, because you can export in their native languages for styling. So this means, and I would highly recommend watching that video. It's a little 2-minute video by somebody using Style Dictionary, and in it they basically take their tokens and they make a few changes, and then they go through and they have a look at their Android build, and then they have a look at their iOS build, and you see all those changes reflected straight away. It's really fast. It's super, super clever. I haven't done this yet where I am because we don't have native apps, but there you go. But I have built swatches and color palettes for Sketch and for Photoshop from it. So we've got our midnight there and our midnight here. But what I'm really, really interested in, not just building palettes, but using a tool called Sketch Constructor, which is also made by Danny Banks and hooks into Style Dictionary. You can build Sketch files. So I can now provide the design team with their Sketch files based off our design tokens, rather than the design team providing tokens from Sketch. And so this to me is incredibly powerful, because it means that we can control the design of everything really accurately. We don't have that problem where somebody might make a change to a master Sketch file and it kind of gets lost, or somebody copies the file and it kind of gets lost. Everything's coming from our core repository, which this really excites me. It also means that you don't actually have to have Sketch installed on your machine to do this. So it builds them programmatically outside. You can hook it into your build pipeline, so as soon as you merge something, it builds all the assets. The designers just go and grab the latest version, the developers go and grab the latest version. You can rebrand an entire product in minutes. So this is really, really cool, and that's what I love about it. And using it means that now I can change pretty much everything here just by making one change on the design tokens. And also, I haven't done this, I don't even know if it's possible, but in theory, I should be able to produce potentially like slide templates for Google, or I don't know if I can create CLI keynote files or anything, but theoretically I can create branded templates for the product team to use in presentations and things like that. And it's really important to have a good template in presentations, I think, don't you? Would you agree, Mike?
Yeah.
I think you would. Stop it. So have we answered these questions? Design tokens, what are they? Atomic design decisions codified. That's my explanation. There are plenty of other explanations. They're all valid. Where did they come from? Gina, Salesforce, primarily. How do I use them? I use Style Dictionary. When I first started exploring this, I used Theo because that was the first go-to. I personally found Theo a little bit, my brain couldn't quite comprehend it. It's quite, you need your brain to, to comprehend it, not my brain. I'm a designer, so I'm using Style Dictionary, which just makes a little bit more sense to me. Why are they good? Because they are a single source of truth, and they're stack agnostic, and they make theming really easy. I did talk to a few people in the sphere around this. Nathan Curtis basically said, don't quote him, so I'm not sure if this is quoting or mentioning, but that's not Nathan. Almost lastly, penultimate, use semantic HTML. Thank you.